Good morning. It's April 12th, almost the middle of the night. As I said, I've been taking care of myself, trying. Um, Here's the problem. Basically, my sleep is off kilter. I worked as a psychologist, and the thing is that by helping other people, kind of a side effect, an after effect, an unexpected outcome was that I ended up getting helped. One of the main things I help people with was sleep hygiene, sleep. And what I used to do was help people so they would be able to get better sleep and give them the best advice I could. And the best advice was basically to work on sleep when you're younger because when you get older, it gets harder. A lot of people above the age of 60 don't sleep at all. Now, I haven't had that problem, but I'm getting older. And I like a regular regimen. I really do. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to ask you to speed up this video. I'm too slow for my own liking. I do watch these, review these before I post them, just to make sure I haven't made any major mistakes, and sometimes I do, and I realize you'll catch those. You'll know what I really mean. You know, when we're stressed or when we're excited, we tend to substitute words or come up with words that are similar but not quite the same. For instance, I said Singapore instead of Shanghai. All right, it begins with an S, and they're Chinese people. It's terrible what's going on around the world, but my sneaking hunch is that in every one of these countries, every one of these governments, there's an element that's set up to destroy their own people. We do have a one world government. Wake up to the fact that it's been going on for a while. And I believe that these one worlders have got a pact, if you will, or a plan, and that is to kill off their own populations. You see, when one country kills off another country, it's pretty obvious to us. We can see that. We can recognize that for what it is. But when your own people are doing it to you, they tend to get away with it. Why? Because we don't want to believe anybody could be that evil. Anybody could be that bad. God, I'm starting to remind myself of George Carlin right now. No, I'm not going to start cussing like he does. There's only one George Carlin. I didn't realize how far ahead of the game he was. I mean, I was a kid watching his stuff. And it was intense. It was over the top. So my basic premise is that every one of these governments around the world are controlled by the evil ones. So it's all one world government. It's all interconnected. And those principles that Yeshua gave us, those advanced lessons of his, and that's what I consider those because those are tough, man. They're not easy to understand. They're not easy to apply. And it seems like the growth in those is always occurring. But the problem I have is that we get stuck in what I call religiosity. We want it to say one thing when in fact it actually says several things. Doesn't say one thing or the other. Or if it does, we tend to get it wrong. We tend to go with the wrong side. So this idea of forgiveness is kind of a strange concept in several ways. Not very natural in some ways. But then again, for us folks that have got the law etched upon our hearts, it is natural. We don't want to be that mean. But unfortunately, we're going to be driven to it. We're going to have to be defending ourselves. Get in the best physical shape you can. Get in fighting shape. If you can run, run. If you can pump iron and do heavy weights, do those. Get yourself ready because physical shape is the number one defense. And the same for your immune system. Get yourself ready in that because physical shape is the number one defense. Unfortunately, they got this stuff going around that they've given to a lot of us. And in case you're wondering, there's some ideas that I've come across that are converging. There was a website called Deagle, D in front of an eagle, Deagle, Deagle.com. And they had that up, and they had some pages on populations. I think the year was 2022. Yeah, let me think here. 2012. They had the population figures in 2012, the per capita income, and the per capita amount spent on defense. Some other stats in there, but those were the three big ones. And then they had the 2025 year projections. And the footnotes on this website were the most important part, and those were in kind of a magenta ink. They weren't easy to read. You had to blow it up to read it. And I saved the pages because it was just too strange. So the United States of America at that point was something like 335 million people. Per capita income was like 56,000 a year on average. Wow. Okay. That's pretty good. And the per capita per year expenditure on defense was massive. I don't remember the figure. But I remember the figures from 2025 pretty good. And the one that stood out is the figure for population of the United States of America in the year 2025. 69 million. 69 million from 235 million means a whole lot of us got to die. And so that's what's in their minds. Oh, and if you want to say it's not written in stone, it is in Georgia, in the Georgia Guidestones, at about 806 feet above elevation. Now, I point that out because that's kind of it's kind of a high water mark, if you will. You see, there's things that are written in the Bible, and these folks know they're coming. And one of those is when a giant millstone, an angel drops what looks like a giant millstone into the ocean. And there's another one in which it's what looks like a mountain into the ocean. I think it says what looks like a burning mountain into the ocean. So we have this event that's coming. Now we can look at that and think, big millstone, meteorite. We can think a lot of things that could hit. And the Earth has been struck by big meteors before. So I think that's one of those days of the Lord. I didn't mention it the other day, but that's like day number 6 or something. I mean, there are several days of the Lord in the Bible. So we've got a lot of warnings in there. But these bad guys seem to be using it as a playbook. Now, are they going to be able to direct an asteroid to the Earth? Man, I never thought that they could do that. I still don't think they can do that. I think that's a God thing, a Yahweh thing. Anyway, there was a giant asteroid that hit the Earth around the Yucatan Peninsula, and there's kind of a big crater there, big impression, and that was said to have just, to taken out the dinosaurs. I think it resulted in cloud cover on the Earth, lack of photosynthesis. It screwed things up pretty badly. And there was another meteorite that hit the coast of India. And if you look at the map, a nice map of India, you will see that on the southeast coast of India, there's an impression, if you will, a dent, if you will, rather. Big impression. And evidently this asteroid hit at an angle and pushed in and under the Indian subcontinent. And the reason we know about that is because Pharaoh wrote, when is the earth going to stop groaning, basically? When is the earth going to stop its genuflections, its reflexes from having this whack? So it didn't hit directly at coming at an angle, and I guess it caused quite a problem with the Earth's surface. I would have to guess that it resulted in probably different earthquakes at different times, especially if it come in a little bit obliquely and dug underneath that land, at an angle like that. And you look at that, that impression in the coast of India, and you'll see it's pretty doggone big. So that was a big one in the time of Pharaoh. I don't know which Pharaoh that was. It's got to be a long time ago. Okay, what do you need to know? Well, you need to know that on the 19th of April, they got a big one planned. They love the 19th of April. If you look up in history, you will find a half a dozen more major events that happened on April 19th. The Oklahoma event, that happened on April 19th. That was planned. They did that. They did that. And there's one thing that I don't think they planned exactly. And that was the event at Lexington, the Battle of Lexington and Concord. That's when the British decided they were going to take our guns away, and that's when the first shot was heard around the world. Now, that's important. I wouldn't be surprised if we get another shot heard around the world. That shot heard around the world, and I don't remember the exact details, but the militia, the order given the militia by the officer in charge of it was to hold your fire. Let them fire first. And so those brave guys followed the order, and they took the shot. They took the hit, and the British drew blood. They were up there at our armory after our muskets, after our powder, our ball and powder, after all of our arms. And back then, an individual could have, well, you still can make cannon. It's always been legal. You made your own guns. Well, you probably had help with some village blacksmith sort of thing. But at this point, they're trying to make everything illegal on guns. They want to take them away. We got a new gun grabber they're trying to appoint head of the ATF. Don't let them do that. Make the phone calls. Do not let them do that. I don't care if you want to have a gun. If you don't want to have a gun, that's fine. I mean, for whatever reason. I had a friend from dancing from years ago over, and she's pretty frail. I put a really lightweight gun, tried to put a lightweight gun in her hands, and she couldn't handle it. And, you know, we're getting older, folks. A lot of you ladies can't protect yourselves, and the problem at this point is you've been pretty mean to us, man. You've done your best to compete with us. You still got this competitive attitude, and in-your-face attitude, which is pretty damn rude. And now you're going to kick back and say we have to defend you. And the fact is that you exposed us to a lot of this. Sorry, but you did. You and your right to vote. Did you know that you're the only ones with a right to vote? Did you know that there is no right to vote in the Constitution? There's no right for men to vote. Men never have had the right to vote. That was a state's right, if you will. That was a state's prerogative. That was up to the states. That's one reason why we had the Electoral College. And the states were sovereign. They were jurisdictions. They were like little nations. And so they would have, states had different laws for voting. Some laws you had to be a landowner, and other laws you had to be of a certain age. Of course, different ages in different states. I think another one, the actual thing was you had to be married, had a household. We should go back to that. If you want diversity, that's where to get it, folks. You want diversity at your state government's levels. You want 50 different experiments, if you will. And you all say, oh, no, it's got to be the same. No, it's got to be different because the regions are different, the lands are different, the people are different, the customs, the culture, the traditions are different. And you want to maintain that social fabric. So you've got to have local rule, self-rule. So the vote needs to go back to the states, back to the people. And when you ladies marched for the right to vote, and my grandmother did march for the right to vote. She was big on getting that to happen. She was a bloomer girl. You don't know what a bloomer girl is. A bloomer girl was noted because they wore several petticoats. It was their way of kind of acting out and kind of rebelling. And my paternal grandmother is on the internet. There's a good picture of her. She was good looking. She wasn't petite though. She had some size to her, And she did some heavy work, especially in the bomb making, the munitions factories during World War. Was that World War II? Yes, it was World War II. She did the work of a man, did heavy work, did the full day's work. That's when you helped us, ladies. But the evil ones got over here in about 1911. There was a woman from Russia. Russia's not the evil ones. These evil ones have been spread among us and still spread among us, and they've been proliferating. So there's more of them today than ever. No, I can't identify them for you, and I'm not going to. You've got to start doing some of your own work. I can't tell you what I don't know, and you're going to have to do it on a case-by-case basis. By their fruits you shall know them. So look at the behavior. Do not look at what they say. Don't look at their platitudes. Man, these politicians, they are sorry son of a guns. I would like to deport them all. Madagascar. I heard of a guy that thought about that before. Oh, really? I mean, if I had my druthers right now, I would just croak the Democrats, get rid of them all, make them illegal. Just tell that party, and then I'd make a big spectacle of it, and I'd look at the Republicans and say, you're next. You straighten yourselves out and let the Republicans divide into separate parties. This Mitt Romney guy, that jackass, he's nothing but a thief. I mean, that's what he did as governor of Massachusetts. He stole from the rest of us to provide his health care program because they couldn't afford it unless they milked the rest of the country. That's what Obamacare was based on. And then that MIT guy who put all that stuff together, who was so bright and told us that, their stuff was supposed to fail so they could have one healthcare system. I don't like what's happened to the healthcare system. And this medical profession has lost credibility. I mean, they're making you wear masks. You try to talk to them about science and all that, and they don't want to listen. The youngsters do not want to hear any advice, any wisdom. Nobody wants to engage in any dialogue, any proper discourse. Well, there's no freedom of speech, folks. They've taken that away, too. The enemy is inside. The barbarian is inside the gates. That's a good book. It was documented by a colonel who got into procurement for the United States for the Pentagon, and he discovered some things that disturbed him greatly. Folks, these evil ones are ruling today. They are the tail. They are ruling over us. Read the Bible, read Exodus, read Leviticus, read Deuteronomy, read about the law. Read those first 5 books, the Deuteronomy. Well, that's too early for me to try to think of the words right now, and I get excited at this point. I need you to get in shape, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Now, I'm a man of strong emotions, and I kind of suffer for them. I don't like my sensitivity. I haven't liked it very much. It's no fun. I would rather be a little less emotional. I'll be a lot more austere. Be more of a man, to be honest with you. Be more masculine. Oh, in psychology, there was a woman who came out with the concept of androgyny, that the more androgynous characteristics a person had, the happier they were. I'm trying to remember her name. Anyway, that's what her research was in, and they published it, and they touted it. Why? Because that fit their agenda, their narrative, whatever you want to call it. And she continued with her research into, the differences between masculine traits and feminine traits. And so the initial thing that she was espousing is that having an equal amount of masculine and feminine traits, those people were happier, more successful, or something like that. Well, as she continued her research, she found out that she was absolutely wrong. And it turned out that the greater one's gender differences, the greater one's sex characteristics were, the happier they were. So women who were more feminine were happier, had better lives, did better. And men who were more masculine were happier. They had better lives. They were, man, I admire those guys that are so big. I always have. Their statues are just wonderful. I'm kind of an average size guy. On the lighter side, thinner side, generally speaking. So everybody looks at me and tells me I'm fine, but as far as I feel fat. I feel overweight, and I need to get back down. I think we're all going to be getting down on weight because there's going to be shortages of food. They announce this stuff and they set it up and they just keep rolling, and you folks don't do a damn thing. You don't wake up. You don't curse them. You don't curse the circumstances. You don't effing care. You become numb. You've learned your helplessness. Learned helplessness is a psychological concept developed by Martin Seligman out of the University of Pennsylvania. The Seligman the family is named as one of the major families in the undermining of the United States of America and bringing forward the New World Order. The gentleman is still alive today. He's trying to pass himself off as the father of positive psychology. Another deception, another lie. The practice of psychology is a negative projective process. It poisons your mind, basically. It's a disease-laden process. The poor psychologists don't even know how diseased they are, how screwed up their thinking is. They don't even realize what they're inflicting on the other poor son of a bitch in front of them. They have no introspection, no reflection. They lack a proper education. They have no idea of their proper skills. They don't understand history. They don't understand simple things as sensitization, desensitization. I mean, they forget their skills and they start thinking along the lines of diseases that don't exist except in the minds of sick mothers. Okay. So we write those things down and we codify them and we treat them as if they're gospel. I mean, that's the way it is, folks. You meet those checklists, you got that disease. You're mentally ill. And you can't change. This is lifelong. So we got to put you on these little pills for the rest of your life. These little pills that disable you and throw your body off. And the little pills that cause chemical imbalances because, well, we're trying to treat a chemical imbalance. They're giving you a chemical imbalance. They're disabling you. They're what's the word in the Bible in the New Testament? It's the book of James, I think. Don't remember. But I think it's pharmacopoeia. It's interpreted in some of the modern English versions as sorcery. Pay attention to these words. Pay attention to these concepts. They're very important. And where's the land of greatest sorceries or the greatest pharmacy companies? They're fighting in it right now, folks. There's so much evil going on in the Ukraine. Now, I generally don't back Putin, but the Russian people have saved our asses many times. We would not be here if it wasn't for the Russian people. So we do owe them. And we owe them a chance to rule over themselves as well. And so here's Biden trying to do regime change. Yeah, we need regime change here at home. We need that 25th Amendment invoked. You folks who think that it's okay to steal, well, I shouldn't be talking about that. They might censor me, but you folks that think that what they did was okay, and you folks that think that because you got your man in by hook or by crook, that there's no repercussions. Well, these are the repercussions. You got him in by hook and by crook. And so you got to suffer like the rest of us, only it's going to be a little bit worse because the rest of us aren't going to put up with your BS anymore. I mean, you preach tolerance, coexistence, but yet you are intolerant mothers. You are intolerant son of a bitches. And you don't preach coexistence. You wanted to destroy the American family. Oh, open your minds up and let us be the way we want to be. It's a lifestyle. It's a choice. It's our choice. It's our choice to do this. And it's okay. And now they're telling us that the rest of us have to abide by their same twisted stuff. Now that's going too far. And I can see a day when there's going to be a purge. I don't want to do it. I don't want to see it. But I've seen it. And there's going to be a day when people do a lot of shooting, putting people out of their misery, out of our misery. You know, if you folks are out there and you've got firearms, it's time to clean those things off, dust those things off. It's time to go back to the range and sight them in and have them ready. You might not have much more of a chance to take the time to do that and get yourself settled back in, but you got to do it. You got to get some trigger time. You got to get ready because these guys are going to do violence on us. I mean, they keep talking about, white supremacists and, nationalism and white terrorism or domestic terrorists. There aren't any domestic terrorists except our own frickin' government. They are a bunch of terrorists. The CDC is not an American institution. It's not a government institution. It's kind of a weird institution. So look into that. You'll find out that they ain't right, folks. The IRS is not a government institution. Look into that, folks. You'll find out they're not even on the continent. They're offshore. I think that's where the monies go to as well. United States Postal Service. That's different than the United States Post Office. I think that's one of those that's offshore as well, and money goes offshore. Oh, Great Britain's had their mitts into us for a long time, and they've never let us go. I'm pretty angry about that. And by the way, I was reading from the Bible with my guest, looking at the book of Genesis, chapter 48, 49. And Jacob, Israel, is at the end of his life, and he calls the boys in, and he does tell them about their character. And in a certain sense, he tells them about their future then. But he describes their character, and those symbols, the animal signs and other signs, became their ensigns, became the signs on their flags. So the tribes adopted those emblems on their flags. Not only that, when the tribes were dispersed, those emblems are on the countries that they formed. So if you want to know where people are from, you look at the country, look at the flag, look at the emblem. Look at Ireland. I believe there's a red hand with a red thread around it. That comes from when Tia Tamir gave birth to the boys when Judah, her father-in-law, impregnated her. That's a pretty fantastic story. You got to read it. I'm not going to go into it. You ladies need to read some of that stuff for yourself because you might be disturbed by it. And I know that you'll decide whether or not you want to be upset. You'll make up your mind. We don't know that. We can't predict that. We can't control that. And you do these dances for us to throw us off. And I get tired of it. And you got to be tired of it too. You women don't even get along with each other. Why? Because you're in competition. You are the predators. Men are nice and easy to understand. We ain't the super predators. That holds true in other species. Look at the lions. Who does the hunting? Who does the providing? Yeah, the lioness goes out and does more of the hunting than the male does. He's kind of big and kind of lazy. But he gets away with it because she likes what she gets from him. And, of course, she may start something, but she might need him, who's twice their size, to go finish something. I want you to get active, read your Bibles, get active physically, get out, stretch, exercise. Stretching is important. I woke up because I got a bad kind of a muscle strain in my leg. I don't used to get those a lot. Haven't had one in a long time, but I've been trying to wear these new shoes that don't fit. I'm taking them back. I got 2 pairs to take back. Charity starts at home, starts locally. I'm going to be I was looking to get some new socks, thinking these old socks are getting to me a bit, but they're still good. They're still okay. Yeah, I found some better fitting socks, and I'm just going to go and buy some more of them. So I'm going to take socks in particular down to the homeless people. And I mean, socks are going to be gobbled up right away. They're going to love it. I mean, everybody likes clean, fresh socks. So if for nothing else, they'll do the socks for that reason. I decided I'm also gonna go through my wardrobe and buy clothes. Yeah, I know clothes cost more, but I don't have to buy the best and latest. I'm gonna be buying what fits and get good stuff right now because I got a feeling we're not going to be able to buy new clothes in the future, and I will justify that by going through my wardrobe and taking clothes that sort of fit or pretty worn, and I'm going to get those down to those people too. Um, no, I'm not going to bother to write it off. I should. I did not like Trump's income tax reform. Sure, it's simpler, but my taxes went up as a result of his stuff. At least it looks like it, and I have to keep doing long forms and stuff. There really should be no such thing as an income tax. Our founders thought it was immoral to tax a man his daily wages, the wages by which he supports himself, because they didn't want people having to become welfare cases. And of course, today we have welfare. The founders never would have put up with that. Certainly not as an institution at a government level, a central level. I mean, the states could do it, the counties could do it, but usually the local women in the communities did that. And of course, they knew the people they were helping. They knew who needed help. They knew who deserved it too. And they could dole it out just the way they wanted to. Just they could target that help. And we didn't need tax write-offs because we didn't have an income tax. We need to go back to that. And I know you folks who want to go after the rich people. You suckers, you fool, you've been deceived so many times. Oh, I'm going to tax that rich guy. Make him pay for stuff I want the government to give me. Boy, talk about weakening the country. Bibi Netanyahu said some amazing things about the welfare state and the United States of America blowing away, and that we could take the hit. And they hit upon us all the time. They take way too much from us. And they haven't been our best friends. Remember the USS Liberty. Remember 9/11. Remember the Kennedy assassination. Yeah, our best friends and allies. Yeah, right. I know men who were on the USS Liberty who survived that thing. I know men who have done some incredible service for this country. I mean, when I hear their stories and they open up to me, and they do open up, it's a bit of a burden to hear their shit. Sorry, but it is. But I let them talk. I let them debrief on me. I don't ask questions. I keep my mouth shut. I don't need to know things. We've had some men do some incredible, courageous stuff. I mean, some really wild stuff. I think I met one of them a while ago who, man, this guy, he told me his story. And at the end of it, at about an hour, we were closing the store down. We talked so long in that shoe department of that store. He told me that they told him that he couldn't talk about it for 40 years. And he looked around a little bit and thought, and he says, yeah, it's been about 40 years. Yeah, 40 years since he went deep into enemy territory, lost his partner, carried the body around for a couple of miles, not realizing it was just that he passed away, got captured, got tortured, and they did some stuff I'm not going to repeat here. It was pretty horrendous. And they'd accomplished the mission. He had gotten the target. The goal was reached, And then he was supposed to get picked up and was captured. And somehow or other he got away. And he fought his way. And I mean, they had hurt him so badly. They had shoved stuff in his mouth, in his anus. I mean, bamboo and all that. They were torturing him. And they were using pig feces, pig urine and stuff. And his adrenaline was pumping so much. This guy was a big guy. I mean, I was looking for my shoe size, which is hard to find because it's so damn small. He's got size 15 feet. You know, I mean, he's got trouble finding shoes. And it was because of his feet that he wasn't allowed to go into the army, and that disappointed him greatly. But they saw that he had some talents, so he ended up working for the company. And he got back to the landing zone, the pickup zone, and the helicopter came in, and I guess he threw his body on the floor of the helicopter, collapsed. It was at that point that he realized, you know, all of his wounds and everything he'd been through. He wasn't aware of how bad he was shot up. And he said that helicopter took off with the machine guns going. And he had killed a bunch of them himself in his escape and getting out. And he said when he lifted up, he said he was so full of. He just said he was so full of, I guess, his feelings of his dedication to this country. And he just loved hearing the machine guns going off, knowing those guys were getting mowed down, that had killed his partner and had tortured him for a while. That he, I guess I don't remember exactly what he said. I'm going to have to remember that a little bit. But that's when he about collapsed and he about died. And they got him out to the hospital in Saigon. And he wasn't regular army. But he said that he was compelled. He was in such bad shape that he just could march. He was marching up and down the halls. Compulsive marching. Couldn't stop. Everybody let him walk. They knew what he had been through. And they did surgery on him for weeks, getting the bamboo out of his body. And they were saluting him. He really wasn't even in our army. I don't even think he was on the company's books. In other words, deep undercover. They had trained him well. What upset him the most, and he did get some special privileges after that. He told me how he passed the background check and how, you know, the guy behind the counter was ordered to give him holsters, cleaning, speed loaders, ammunition, everything. And the guy says, I didn't buy this. I didn't pay for that. He says, yes, sir. I understand, but I've been ordered to give this to you. And he did say, I don't want to mention his name, folks. I just know it's probably a nickname. But he said, I've been ordered so-and-so to ask you one question. Sir, are you active? And the gentleman who was the elderly gentleman who was older than I said, no, sir, I'm not active. And that's all they wanted to hear. They just wanted to make sure that he was safe and okay because he was so well trained. He told me about his training, just a little bit. I figured out that he was on his mission in about 1974, 1973. North Korea. Yes, We got some badasses. We got some guys that risk everything and sacrifice everything serving this nation. Right now, because a lot of people won't take the jab, they are not being allowed to work their positions. The nation is at the weakest it's ever been, folks. Our defenses are not strong. You've got men whose jobs are to drive trucks carrying some incredible stuff around the country that we're not supposed to know about, just out of security. And about half of those aren't at work now because of this dumbass's judgment down in D.C. You got to remember, folks, that the New World Order has got these people in every one of these developed nations, not just the Western nations, but Eastern nations as well. And their job is to follow orders. Right now, the people in Shanghai, 28 million of them are being starved to death in a civil action. It's a cruel manner, but they don't have any way to fight back, folks. They're trying to take away our way to fight back, and they have been outlasting us, outliving us. The spirit, the good Americans, they're almost gone. So, our warrior class has been decimated because they toss them into these wars, and they purposely get our boys killed. They order them into situations in which they know they're going to get killed, like that SEAL team that got shot down in that helicopter. Gee, it was like lightning, like Barack had struck them. Yeah, folks, treason in high places, the twice-born spawn of Satan. That's what Andy said, and he was right. Need you to read about Barack in your Bibles? You need to understand that the reason that Barack gets away with it, the reason Barack is empowered, is because we hate Yahweh. Barack works for Yahweh. He's doing Yahweh's will. So you either turn to Yahweh or you're going to get more Barack. You're going to get more lightning strikes. You either turn and worship the one true God, the creator of the universe, and you read the book he gave us. You access his mind. You build that relationship with him, with that Holy Spirit. Either you do that or it's over. You want to save the nation? You want to save the country? You don't get it by this modern weird religion, some odd way of salvation where you're given license to do whatever the heck you want afterwards. No, folks, you're not given a license to do what you want. Even God repented himself of man on the earth, and that's our next Bible study. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm not getting much feedback or encouragement on those. I will be going through it. I got ready for the lesson, and I've been trying to work on my own sleep. And to get back to the sleep stuff, the most important thing is waking at the same time. It doesn't matter as much at the time you go to bed, although you want to go to bed at the same time. You folks out there who've got mood disorders, depression, bipolar disorders, anxiety, it helps to exercise. It helps to exercise strenuously. It also helps to eat your meals at the same time every day. And you want 3 squares. If you don't have 3 squares, you put your organs at risk, in particular your gallbladder. So even though you can get by on eating once a day, you want to eat throughout the day 3 times. And I know as we get older, our stomachs shrink and we don't need as much food. We're not exerting as much energy, but you still got to eat in a regular way. And death starts in the colon, so you need to eat for the bacteria that are in your intestines. That's kind of what you live by. That's your biome. That's the good stuff. You've got to keep that stuff going. So, and the other thing that's associated with death is dehydration. I think 3/4 of people who die, they're dehydrated at the time. So you've got to stay hydrated. The waters in this nation are bitter. I understand that. There's not much sweet water, good water in the United States right now. And it is hard to find because they do stuff to it that we shouldn't allow them to do. The stuff they do to our water has been illegal to do in every nation in Europe for at least 2 decades. But yet here in the United States of America, we keep doing it. There was a woman named Mullinex, Phyllis Mullinex, Dr. Mullinex in the 50s. There are videos of her interviews on YouTube in which she's giving testimony. Now, this was a really nice lady, and she had a doctorate in the 50s, okay? And she was a professional, one of the leading researchers, and she gave her testimony. And what did they do? They targeted her. They do that with everybody they don't like. And if you think they won't target you or can't get to you, they can take any one of us any which way they want. They've got total control over this stuff. They can go backwards into your computers and put stuff on there to get you convicted for child porn and stuff. They've done that to people. I mean, it's hard to trust these convictions and all of this stuff they've been doing to all of us. Some of these labs were faking the DNA test. Man. Go to sleep at the same time if you can. Work on getting good sleep. It'll help you to live longer. I have to work on mine again. I'm getting professional help on it, and I'm just amazed at these youngsters. Oh, when you get to my age, they look like children, and they're all beautiful just because they got their youth. Some of them are actually nice. Others, you can tell they just don't give a rat's ass. That's pretty sad. A lot of them are disrespectful because, old fogies don't know anything. Man, I hung out with some old people and listened to them, and I learned a lot. There's a principle in the Bible, and that is while the generation that is good is still alive, there's no retribution. The retribution comes after they pass. And so that's a principle that you will learn by reading in the Old Testament. So because a particular generation was alive, the Lord did not bring judgment upon them. So that was a little bit delayed. And I think that the last great generation is pretty much gone. Now, don't get me wrong. Those folks were deceived. They were sent off to a war that we never should have had. Of course, we had to have that war because the first war didn't get resolved properly. That Treaty of Versailles was a horrible treaty. That thing set the world up, so we had to go to war again. But you got to remember, that's what these folks want. Remember that that's what they do. They work on both sides. So that war that's happening in the Ukraine, that thing is being drummed up by the same people that Jesus threw out of the temple. He formed a whip, and he whipped them and yelled at them. And within a week, he was dead. Folks, he's pointing out who the bad guys are. Their children and their practices that have come forward today, those are the bad guys. They love war. They work on both sides. They manipulate all parties. They lend money to all parties. That's why you're stuck with a stupid banking system in which you can borrow money that doesn't exist. They create it out of thin air. It's magic. And then they charge you interest on that. Now, where does the money for the interest come from since those guys control the money supply? It doesn't exist. So they get to bankrupt your asses. And they get to take stuff away from you. And right now, you folks have been suckered in by this media to thinking that Putin was doing horrible stuff over there. It was the Ukrainians doing the horrible stuff. However, because you guys have lied about Putin and ramped things up, of all things, Putin's criticism by the Russian people is he's not tough enough. He needs to be harder. President Biden has united the nation. He's united the country. He's united Russia against us. Those people have dug in for the long and hard thing. Putin was not going to go in there and take the whole nation. You jackasses got suckered by this media and their propaganda. They're brainwashing again. And the evil guys own that stuff and dictate what they're going to say anyway. You might as well shut off your TV sets. So the problem is now, because they've lied, because Biden has made it personal and has lied about Putin and maligned him, and then they're blaming these atrocities that those skinheads in Ukraine are doing on their own people. There's no forensic examinations of any of those war crimes. Purposely no forensic examinations so they can blame it on Putin, on the Russians. And they sucker you into thinking we got to save the Ukraine. We got to get those people some more weapons to fight. How much is that President Z worth anyway? What's that mansion of his cost? And where is it located? What was his profession? He's got more wealth than any of the actors or actresses in Hollywood. He's the highest paid actor on the planet. And he's got you folks convinced. You realize that he showed up to one of these parliaments over one of these European nations with 3 of the soldiers from the front that had been fighting the Russians? And they were all those skinhead jackasses? Now, you skinheads are angry with me right now. Okay, fine. Fine. I'm sorry, there's just some characteristics there that bother me quite a bit. You guys are manipulated as well, and you don't realize it. We're all manipulated. We're all brainwashed. They've got this magical mystery tour going on across the whole planet. The deception, the sorcery, the pharmacopoeia. And where is the head of all of these big pharma companies? Where's the CEO headquarters at? It's in the Ukraine, folks. It's not in the United States. It's in the Ukraine. Why is that? Why is that? Why are they located in Kiev? What's wrong? Don't they like the other nations? Maybe that's where they come from. Maybe that's their homeland. Yeah, read the Bible. You'll be able to discern this stuff. And by the way, those 3 NAZI militia regiments, or whatever you want to call them, that supposedly aren't part of the government over there, all 3 of them have got their unit insignias, and all 3 of them got a little tiny patch, and there's a specific name for that symbol, and that's the sign, the symbol, the banner under which Khazaria went to war. Ancient Khazaria, which was blown away in about 1100 AD. They were pushed off. They were mean, nasty people. It was a sociopathic culture. They loved war, had a standing army of something like 40 million. And they leased their army out to their neighbors. They made money off it. It was a profession. They had a good time. They loved the adrenaline rushes. Adrenaline is addicting, folks. And most of the time, when you're doing these things you know you're not supposed to do, it's because of the adrenaline rush. I'll go into that another time. I'm gone long here a bit. I never finished what I was talking about yesterday. I apologize. I got up in the middle of the night. I'm not going to bother to stay awake listening to this thing. I do listen to everything. I find myself likable these days. I actually find myself liking myself. When I was on the radio first in about 2008, 2009, I couldn't listen to my own voice. I couldn't stand my voice. I'd hear it and it creeped me out. I was supposed to go deaf by the time I was 12. And the hearing in my ear is different than what you hear. In my own head, my voice sounds much smoother. But when I hear a tape playing back, I can hear the anxiety in my own vocal tone. I don't have the capacity to hear that and perceive that. Actually, these hearing aids have helped quite a bit. I lost a large amount of my hearing at about, I don't know, I guess I was age 10, and was shooting 22 rifles and forgot my hearing protection. We were in a basement. I think that we're not very civilized in this nation. If we were civilized, we would require that children, youth only shoot guns that are suppressed so they won't damage their hearing. That's a major health impediment when you get older. Loss of hearing is associated with Alzheimer's, with dementias. We get isolated, we don't talk, we don't express ourselves, and we just kind of dwindle. We atrophy. So you got to stay active. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. Don't give up without a fight. So I think that the way we're handling things when it comes to silencers or suppressors, we've got Hollywood acting like they're totally silent and you can't hear them. And of course, they do all those evil things with those silencers and suppressors. I think they're a health aid. And by the way, when I was a little boy living in Germany, hunting over there was quite regulated. The forests were just beautiful. I mean, they were amazing forests. Did a little bit of fishing in those. Never did any hunting in those. The Black Forest, it's just beautiful stuff over there. A lot of fine animals, well managed and maintained. The Burgermeister, you had to go out with him on a hunt. Okay, and it was an expensive thing, but one of the requirements was you had to use a suppressor. Why? Well, it protects the hearing, but it also, nobody else has to hear your gunshot. Doesn't spook the animals as much either. Oh, sure, you hear it, they hear it. You hear the action and you get a report. You get that crack of the bullet, but it tones it down a bit. And it's polite and it's civil. And, I mean, here we have President what's-his-name deciding he doesn't like those things because they're talking about one being used in some odd crime, some homemade one that was used somehow in a way that shouldn't have been used. Anyway, then he says he wants to make those illegal. And prior to that, supposedly he was all for our Hearing Protection Act. And that never got off the ground. I don't trust the guy. Yeah, I know a lot of you worship him. You need to stop worshiping men. Now, Yahweh can use a man. He can use a man like that. But that man doesn't worship Yahweh. He's not one of Yahweh's either, folks. He's on the other side. I know, I told this older friend of mine, she damn near cried. I'm sorry to break your heart. Sorry to burst your bubble. But you got to wake up. Nobody gets up to that level without either being one of them or being totally compromised. And we know that the only selection criteria for judges are they do something nasty and bad that they can hold against them so they can blackmail them and they can dictate what the outcome of the trial is. All of this stuff is so controlled. There is no justice. And you people that think that there's such a thing as social justice or economic justice or racial justice or any kind of justice, you are fools. Justice is justice. That's it. It cannot be modified. If it's modified or geared, for a specific thing like economic justice, outcomes, whatever, that's not justice. That's a perversion of justice. So it's got to be pure. So when people are talking social justice, they got an agenda. And that's what you'll find in your margins of a lot of your Bibles, that NAV study Bible, social justice. And yes, they'll talk about equality, equal opportunity, fine. We've had enough of that. Those laws need to go away because now they're discriminating against me and my kind. They're discriminating against people. It's not fair at all. And people certainly aren't created equal. God, I wanted to be a professional quarterback. Why shouldn't I be able to be a professional quarterback? Yeah, Tom Brady. I like his lifestyle. Married to a supermodel. That seems to be a good marriage, folks. I hope they stay together. That appears to be one of the better ones. Some of these other get pretty weird and twisted. They aren't good examples. Don't follow them. All right, I'm over an hour. I got to get off here. But to dictate equal outcomes is impossible because we all take risks. We all take chances. And I've had a lot of losses during my life. Some of that stuff is set up in the background, and you and I don't even know it. We aren't even aware of it. But these guys track us all over the place, and they screw with us every which way they can. And there's bad people out there. There's sociopaths out there, and they lay traps and do stuff all the time. And you won't detect those because they're so subtle and so shrewd. But you might catch a glimpse of them as you walk away, but you will not. You won't detect them. At this point, I start detecting them earlier on, especially after the last one cost me big bucks. I had enough to buy a house, and they deprived me of my inheritance. It's not a good thing. I actually, I'm not happy with FedEx either. Oh, by the way, before I end, I talked to the CEO of Smile, told him what the problems were. I think I gave him some suggestions as to how to improve his service. I hope he got that, and I hope he improves it. It's a good organization. I mean, it's good. I went and they took care of me pretty good. I had written down the address in my calendar on a different page, and I just didn't remember it, couldn't find it. I was looking for it, but I could not find it, so I couldn't remember where it was. So it was my faux pas. It was my mistake, my bad. I didn't go to the right location. We started off talking about this one location, and it was at a whole nother location. And I've told that to the CEO because I figured it out. Honesty is the best policy. You don't have to keep track of your lies. But the sociopaths just do nothing but lie and keep you off base as best they can. They're very shrewd. They're always a few steps ahead of us. They plan our demise. They lay these traps and stuff for us. But you got to understand that we're dealing with a sociopathic culture. We're dealing with a group of people that are really evil. They're sons of Cain, descendants of Cain. Come to think about it, John McCain, son of Cain. That's what Mac means, son of. Was he a good guy? Was he not? Was he a bad guy? We hear all kinds of rumors about how he passed. Look at his wife. Look at who he's married to. What family does she come from? Yeah, folks, these people follow family lineages, and they aren't nice people. We need to kick them out of our country once and for all. Go read the book of Obadiah. You got a lot of stuff to do. And I don't think we're anywhere near at the end. I think that the evil ones are using this book to practice some magic on us and keep us mystified. I don't think we're at the end at all. And another friend of mine who's older, who's familiar with more Bibles than I am, he doesn't think we're at the end of all. Why? Because there's so much prophecy in the Old Testament that has yet to be fulfilled. By the way, Isaiah had the greatest vision. And the city of Damascus has that prophecy about Damascus, or Damesh, as they say it over there. Yeah, I had a girlfriend. Well, she was a friend, just a friend. And she was beautiful. I really was attracted to her, but oh well. Anyway, Damascus has never failed to be inhabited, as far as I know. And yet there is a prophecy regarding Damascus, that it will be turned into rubble, a hunt for jackals, that it will be uninhabitable. That hasn't happened yet. So that's one marker right there. So I keep thinking I'm gonna live to see it happen. It hasn't happened yet. So we're a long ways from the final acts of this magnificent play that's going on. You need to understand these people worship Apollo. the angel that's held in the pit. Where is that pit? Might that be inside the sun? Inside the earth? And those poor guys in, I think it's pronounced Teotihuacan, that city that's like at 13,000 feet or so elevation today, that was once at sea level. Their stone carvings indicate that the sun does throw its lightning bolts to the earth. What's the word for lightning? Barak is the Aramaic or Hebrew word for lightning. That's the name of the general in the book of Judges who insisted he wasn't going to go to battle unless Deborah, the prophetess, unless the lady joined him, he wasn't going to go to battle. And the prophetess told him, yeah, and your enemy shall be delivered into the hand of a woman because you're such a chicken squat. Then we have Jael, who takes Sisera's life. I think it was Sisera. She used a tent peg and a hammer. And she became famous. Not many women named in the Bible. Well, there's quite a few actually, but most of the women are just alluded to. They're not named. And those that are named, there's a reason for that. You ladies ought to read that book. You ought to read that book and see if you can get your men to read it. And just talk about the stories. Even that would be helpful. You know, there's a lot of stories in there, so you got something to talk about. So you can talk about Jael. You can talk about all kinds of things. You can talk about Tia Tamir. Have fun with that one because you're not going to like that story very well. You're not going to like what she went and did and how the land of Yahshua came about. You got to read it, though. It's very important. Well, we're way over an hour. Thanks for hanging with me. I hope you got blessings towards the end. May Yahweh bless. And I'm going to go crawl back in the sack, folks. I got to work on getting that puppy dog soon. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm going to get me another dog. Oh, my stomach just growled at me. It howled at me. It reminded me of a dog. Yeah, I need one. Bye-bye, folks. Yahweh bless.